Today's episode is a little different. Just you and me having an honest conversation about porphyria. But this isn't just about symptoms or statistics. It's about what I wish every person, patients, caregivers, doctors, friends understood about this rare disease. We're talking misdiagnosis, the emotional toll, how advocacy truly saves lives, why community is your lifeline, and what life looks like after diagnosis. Whether you're newly diagnosed, supporting someone who is, or just trying to make sense of it all, this episode will leave you with clarity, connection, and actionable ways to move forward. Let's get into it. Welcome to Rarely Discussed, an American Porphyria Foundation podcast with your hosts, Andrew McManamon
and Nicole Castellano.
We have porphyria, a rare disease. Rare diseases differ greatly but share many similarities in how they affect our lives.
Being rare can feel lonely and isolating, but we're stronger together. Join us in meaningful interviews with porphyria and rare disease experts and the patients and families impacted as we connect, learn, and heal together.
We'll talk diagnosis, treatment, pain, mental health, managing daily life, and everything rare. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Andrew McManamon, and this is the Rarely Discussed podcast. But today, it's just me, no guest, no panel, no clinical breakdown, just an honest conversation. One that's been building in my head for a while. I want to talk about porphyria, but not in a way that it's usually explained. Not the textbook definition, not the sterile medical language most of us have Googled at 2 a.m. while lying there in pain. I want to talk about what I genuinely wish everyone knew about this disease. Patients, caregivers, doctors, friends, employers, and even the people who might stumble across this episode and wonder why a podcast about a rare disease even exists. This conversation is for you too. I was diagnosed with acute intermittent porphyria, AIP, in 2018. Before the diagnosis, for a brief time, my life looked like confusion layered on top of pain, layered on top of frustration. My body was screaming at me in ways I didn't understand. ER visits, blood work, scans, unanswered questions, and like so many people with rare diseases, I started to internalize that doubt. When doctors don't have the answers and symptoms don't show up neatly on tests, the unspoken implication is often that the problem might be you. That is stress, anxiety, something psychological. When I received my diagnosis, it was terrifying, but also relieving at the same time. I finally had a name for what was happening to my body, but what I didn't know yet was what living with porphyria would actually mean. And that's where this conversation really begins. One of the most important things I wish people understood is this. Porphyria is rare, but it's not invisible. No matter how many times you're told that it is, porphyria hides quietly in the body, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, before it announces itself in ways that can no longer be ignored. Severe abdominal pain, neurological symptoms, muscle weakness, psychiatric manifestations. For those with cutaneous forms, painful reactions to sunlight. What makes porphyria especially cruel is that it often looks like something else. It mimics common conditions. It slips through diagnosis or diagnostic cracks, I should say, and because of that, it is one of the many rare diseases that patients live with long before they're ever diagnosed. Scientific evidence backs this up. According to the Global Genes and European Organization of Rare Diseases, the average rare disease patient waits between 7 and 10 years for an accurate diagnosis. For porphyria specifically, multiple studies and patient registries show diagnostic delays of 10 to 15 years, and in some cases, even way longer. That means years of unmanaged symptoms, unsafe medications, unnecessary procedures, and psychological damage from not being believed. This isn't because patients aren't trying hard enough. It's because rare diseases like porphyria simply aren't emphasized in medical education. Many healthcare providers will never encounter a case during training, and when something is rare, it's often overlooked. That brings me to the first thing I wish everyone truly understood. Early diagnosis changes everything. It doesn't just change treatment, it changes outcomes, quality of life, and survival. Early diagnosis allows patients to avoid known triggers, unsafe medications, unnecessary surgeries, and repeated hospitalizations. It allows for appropriate monitoring, emergency planning, and education. Studies published through the National Institutes of Health show that delayed diagnosis in porphyria is associated with increased hospitalization rates, higher complication risk, and worse long-term neurological outcomes. Simply put, the sooner porphyria is identified, the better the chance someone has at managing it successfully. But here's the hard truth. Early diagnosis doesn't usually happen by accident. Sometimes it does, but most times it doesn't. It happens because someone fights for it. It happens because a patient, a caregiver, an advocate refuses to accept "we don't know" is the final answer. It happens because someone pushes for the right test at the right time, like urine PPG and ALA testing during an attack and genetic testing, and that means advocacy isn't optional in rare disease. It's essential. If you are a patient who has learned to recognize patterns in your symptoms, or a caregiver who knows something isn't right, your voice matters. Your persistence matters. Your lived experience can be the thing that leads to an accurate diagnosis, not just for you, but for someone else down the line. The second thing I wish people understood is how powerful community is in rare disease life. And I don't mean that in a motivational poster kind of way. I mean it literally saves lives. Before I connected with others who had AIP, I felt isolated in a way it's really hard to describe. I didn't know anyone who could truly relate to what I was experiencing. And over time, that isolation turns inward. You start questioning your own reality. You wonder if you're exaggerating. You feel weak, but the moment you hear someone else describe the same exact pain, the same confusion, the same fear, that isolation cracks. Research supports this. According to a study published in the Orphanet Journal of Rare Diseases, patients with rare diseases who report strong peer support experience lower rates of depression and anxiety and a higher overall quality of life. Community doesn't just provide emotional comfort, it provides education, empowerment, and validation. Patients learn practical things from one another that no pamphlet ever covers. How to advocate in the ER, how to navigate insurance, what to pack for hospital stays, how to explain the disease to loved ones. This is why finding your people matters, whether that's through the American Porphyria Foundation, online support groups, conferences, or even listening to stories like this on this podcast. You don't have to wait until your next crisis to feel supported. Community is preventative care for the soul, and it directly combats one of the biggest threats to people with chronic illness: isolation. Because here's the third truth I want to talk about: isolation doesn't have to win. Chronic illness has a way of shrinking your world. Plans get canceled, energy disappears, conversations become difficult. It can feel easier to withdraw than to explain yourself again and why you can't do something. But every time someone with porphyria speaks up, isolation loses a little more power. Whether that's telling a friend that what you're dealing with, or sharing a post online, or coming in on a podcast like this to tell your story, you are breaking silence that hurts far more than visibility ever could. And that brings me to advocacy. Advocacy is one of the most misunderstood but powerful tools in the rare disease community. Advocacy isn't just lobbying or fundraising, although that matters heavily and very, very deeply. Advocacy it's telling your story. It's sharing accurate information. It's participating in research. It's educating others, and it works. According to NORD, patient advocacy organizations have directly contributed to over 80% of rare disease research advancements in the past 3 decades. Let me say that again. Advocacy organizations have directly contributed to over 80% of rare disease research and advancements in the past 3 decades. Awareness leads to funding. Funding leads to studies. Studies lead to treatments, and treatments change lives. It's easy to scroll social media and compare yourself to others, to think, who would care about my story? Or I'm not doing enough. But the truth is, you have no idea who might read or hear your words and finally recognize themselves. Someone across the world might see your post and realize they're not alone. Someone might finally push for testing because of something you shared. That is quiet. That is truly the quiet power of advocacy, and that's why your voice matters way more than you think it does. Sometimes we get caught up in the views and the likes on social media that we don't realize that 10, 100, or 1,000 real people across the world took the time to like or watch something we put out in the world, and they know more because of it. Another critical part of living with porphyria is learning how to measure progress differently. Life with chronic illness it's unpredictable. You can do everything right and still have an attack. That's just the reality of it. That's why small wins are not small at all. They're essential. Psychological research published in the Health Psychology shows that setting small, achievable goals improves mental health outcome, increases resilience, and reduces feelings of helplessness in people with chronic conditions. Progress is not linear, and perfection isn't realistic, but consistency, self-compassion, and adaptability are. That means celebrating getting through the day, tracking symptoms for a week, asking one question at an appointment, allowing yourself to rest without having guilt. These things matter. They build stability in a body that doesn't always cooperate, and they remind you that you still have agency even when illness tries to take that away from you. We also need to talk about caregivers, because they carry an enormous, often invisible burden. Caregivers are the ones driving to appointments, managing medications, advocating in hospitals, and holding emotional space during the worst moments in your life. According to the National Alliance for Caregiving, caregivers of people with rare diseases experience significantly higher rates of stress, anxiety, and burnout than caregivers of more common conditions, which may come as not a surprise, and yet they are rarely given the same support. If you're a patient, it's important to remember that your caregivers cannot read your mind. Tell them what you need. Be honest. Give them grace when they're exhausted. And if you're a caregiver, know this: your role is vital. Your presence matters, and you deserve support too. Strong support systems don't happen by accident. They're built through communication, patience, and mutual understanding. We also need to extend some grace to healthcare professionals while still advocating fiercely for ourselves. Porphyria receives little coverage in medical training. According to studies on rare disease education, most physicians receive less than 1 hour of formal instruction on rare diseases combined. That doesn't make them uncaring, it makes them human. But when a provider isn't listening or isn't willing to learn, advocacy becomes non-negotiable. Bring resources, share APF emergency protocols, ask for specialists, use organizations like the American Porphyria Foundation to find experts in clinical trials. Knowledge is not arrogance, it's protection. And finally, I want to talk about life after diagnosis, because this is where many people feel the most fear. Diagnosis doesn't mean life ends. It means life changes. It means redefining what normal looks like for you, but it also means clarity at the same time. It means understanding your body. It means finding new ways to build joy, meaning, and purpose. On this podcast alone, I've spoken with people who have climbed mountains, traveled the world, built businesses, raised families, and found massive fulfillment while living with porphyria. The pain is real, the struggle is real, but so is the possibility of a meaningful life too. So if you're newly diagnosed or supporting someone who is, I want you to hear this clearly. Porphyria may be rare, but you are not alone. Community exists, hope exists. We are louder than any diagnosis. Together, we push awareness forward. Together, we build a future where fewer people suffer in silence. If this episode resonated a little bit with you, share it, talk about it, send it to somebody who needs it. And if you're a part of this community, reach out. We want to hear your story. Thanks for listening. This is the Rarely Discussed Podcast. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with friends, family, or anyone who could benefit. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your preferred platform. It helps us spread awareness, and we would be extremely grateful. You can also follow Rarely Discussed on Instagram, YouTube, as well as TikTok. If you're someone seeking diagnosis for porphyria, visit porphyriafoundation.org to receive a free doctor packet, forms for free DNA testing, and a list of doctors in your area. Stay tuned for more episodes of Rarely Discussed.